So you need to tape down for this project because it is going to get a little wet. I'm going to be using some experimental techniques, which I know that you will love, so that's why I'm doing it. I'm going to have lots of fun, and we're going to do some really loose paintings. So get ready for action. This is an A4 piece of paper, and it's Canson and cold pressed 300 GSM. We're using watercolour and some salt and who knows what. Let's see how we go. Just using a spray bottle and giving the paper a little spray with droplets more than a mist, and you can adjust these spray bottles with the nozzle and make sure that it's to droplets and not a really fine mist. I've got my board on a really low slope. In fact, I'll just show you what I've got. Just got a little bit of driftwood here, and I put that under the board so that I've got a bit of a slope coming towards me. I'm going to use some neutral tint. If you haven't got neutral tint, you could definitely use a little bit of ultramarine blue mixed with some burnt umber, or even just a little bit of Payne's grey would be nice. Just using the brush, and I'm just rolling it just with the tips of my fingers. I'm holding the brush at the end. I've got the paper set at portrait, and I'm wanting a little bit of movement coming down. I'm thinking of a rainy day and around the bushlands, and you know, all those little streams and rivers that merge and come together. So you can see here, just allowing the brush, just rolling it and just allowing it to play. I'm thinking about the water down the bottom. Burnt sienna, that's my next colour. Just going to maybe splatter a bit of burnt sienna on there. Now some ultramarine blue. Still thinking about the colours of the rainy day, leaving a little bit of light showing through. A little bit of splattering. And again, just twirling the brush in my fingers. Bring a little bit of that burnt sienna down to the bottom. And just let it run. Do what it needs to do. I'm going to let this dry off. I'm going to let it dry naturally. But first of all, I'm just going to add a little bit of salt, not too much, just a little bit while it's still wet. Just a little sprinkle at the top. I don't want too much. Okay, that's it. I'm going to leave it alone while I have my pumpkin soup for lunch, and I will come back and finish it off. We're almost dry, but not quite. What I've done, I've made up a little mix here of neutral tint, and I've just got a script liner, but you could just use just a small round brush. And what I'm doing is just touching into those little bits of salt and just letting it absorb the salt, absorb the liquid, and what it'll do, it'll create some interesting little marks for us. I often do this, especially if I've got a landscape with, say, a pebbled area or a sandy area with a beach. So try and be careful not to move the salt too much. We could add another colour, so I'm just going to pick up a little bit of moss green here, using Daniel Smith watercolours. This is the only green that I own, and I generally mix my greens, but I do love this particular one. Going to add some more of this colour in the finished work. So this will be a nice little interesting addition. So now we'll leave that to dry completely, and then we'll brush off the salt. Dry, I have removed the salt, and you can see that I've got some nice little marks here from the salt. Didn't want too many, just some here and there, just to give me some interest to the painting. I'm going to again give my work a very light spray with again the nozzle on droplet, and I'm going to use my script liner with some neutral tint, and I'm just going to hold my brush right at the end and just start to just pull through some branches. Now, because of the droplets, I am going to get some bleeds, and that's what I'm looking for. I'm actually looking for those bleeds. Holding the brush at the end gives you definitely less control of your work and makes your work look less contrived and more natural. Now I'd like to see a few bleeds around here, and there's no droplets there, so I'm just going to take the brush, the spray, and give it a spray, and you can do that again over the rest of your work and just help it run a little bit. Some thicker lines and some thinner lines are what we want. Just pulling out some smaller branches, some twigs. Okay, I'd like to see a few more bleeds down here. So we're just giving it a little spray. We can just add some little bits of colour there and it will just bleed and give me some lovely marks. Isn't that a beautiful colour, the neutral tint? Remember, you can mix a neutral tint just with a bit of burnt umber and ultramarine blue. So remember I said I was going to use a bit more moss green in this painting, and here we go. Just touching into those colours, into those droplets and colours, and just adding just a little bit more colour to the piece. Again, remembering to use that brush, holding it on the end so that you get some degree of looseness. A little bit of a splatter. And I think that we may be just about there, and we'll dry it off and then adding some final touches. So I turned the camera off and was just about to walk away from my work, and I thought to myself, why don't I put some salt on there? Some more salt. So I'm just adding a little bit of salt in those areas that have a bit of pigment in them. Just to add some more interest. Now, if you do feel as though your work wants more colour, don't forget you can add more colour around that salt, like we did earlier. So I'm going to put this outside to dry. It's a lovely day out there today, and it should dry pretty quickly. I don't want to use a hairdryer because it blows the salt everywhere, but I think that outside it should dry fairly quickly, and I can come back and finish off for you with our focal point today. So I'll just give you a close-up of that before I do go, just so that you get an idea of where we're at. You can see lots of salt there. Be very interesting to see what happens and what we find when we take the salt off. So I'll come back to you soon. So my painting needed a focal point, and I went to Pixabay and typed in insects and found these lovely praying mantis. I've got a couple of pictures, and my drawing is a combination of both of them. So You don't have to do a combination. You could just do a straight out copy. Pixabay is a copyright-free website where you can get images and use them with no copyright infringement. So that's where I get my images, and you could do any insect on this painting. I just chose to do the praying mantis because it was a little bit different from what I've done before. As with my art, I very rarely copy exactly, and I haven't this time. So I've just picked up some of that moss green I used earlier, and I've added a little bit of lemon yellow to it just to make it that little bit brighter. I'm going to just start to block in my praying mantis. Just the body part here and the wing as well, the legs. Now I'm picking up a little bit of ultramarine blue, and that's going just underneath the body. I'm going to put a little bit onto the legs as well. And just on the side of the face here. Now I'm going to pick up a little bit of burnt sienna. And just add some of that to the legs. And again, just a little bit to this side of the face. Just add a little bit to those eyes just to make them stand out a little bit. And just a little bit of a warmer tone just at the top of the body and just under where the wing meets the actual body itself. A little bit more of that blue and just to the back of the wing here. Now I do want it a little bit brighter than this, so I'm going to take a little bit of lemon yellow and just a little bit of the ultramarine blue. There we go. It's a little bit brighter, and I'm just going to start to add that colour. A little bit more on the face too. Okay, just now going to take a little bit of the ultramarine blue and a little bit of the burnt sienna. Now you could always use the neutral tint for this as well, but it's basically just putting in the little feelers. And just defining a little bit these legs. Okay, let that dry. Now I don't want to use a pen because it's I think it'd be just a little bit too strong for what I'm doing here, so just using a pencil, just a graphite pencil. I'm just paying attention to the shapes more than anything. And just bringing out some of those finer details. There are like little segments under the body. A little bit of shading. And I think that we are just about done with this one. Let's take off the tape and have a look. Just going to now finer little touches where I can see the whole painting. This is just a Posca Uni White pen, and very handy just to put final highlights in. It actually doesn't need too much, and that's probably all we need. And there we have it. Waterways with Praying Mantis. Little close up for you. Thank you for watching once again. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already subscribed. That way you'll be able to follow me on YouTube and see any new videos that I release first up. Anyway, bye for now. Thank you again. It was lots of fun and enjoy. Bye for now.